Okay, so Julia, do you always have a lot of keys with you?
Well, at the moment, since I'm self-employed and work remotely from the comfort of my home, I do not usually have a lot of keys on me. Only when I go out or when I need to pick up my son from the kindergarten, then I would have a bunch of keys, and that would be the keys from my apartment. So, well, it's not even a big bunch, just 2 keys for the 2 locks that we have, and that's it. But when I used to work at the state school, I used to carry my apartment keys and my classroom keys with me. And since I used several classrooms in that school, yeah, there were a few keys, so that was quite heavy and uncomfortable, and at times drove me crazy. All that clinking sounds, and like the weight of it in my bag. Yeah.
Okay. Well, as for me, the number of keys that I carry with me tends to be relatively small, and I typically only carry the keys that are necessary for accessing my home, my workplace, or other essential locations. And since I don't have a car, I don't have a key fob. And what I do is that I carry all my keys on a key ring, and I prefer to keep my keychain relatively streamlined in order to avoid clutter and unnecessary weight. So I make sure that I always have what I need without feeling weighed down or encumbered.
Mm-hmm.
And have you ever lost your keys?
Well, having always been really, really careful and cautious about my possessions, I personally have never lost my keys, but my then husband to be, and then at that time my boyfriend, somehow managed to lose the keys to my apartment while I was in London. And the big issue was that my cat was locked inside, and he was supposed to somehow feed the cat. So, but he couldn't actually go inside without the keys. So I had to somehow arrange for him to go to my parents. And my parents were not aware of me leaving the keys with him. And that was actually the first time when they saw him. So can you imagine, rather than formally showing my boyfriend to my parents, introducing him to my parents, that was his first time meeting my parents. That was a hilarious story, but of course, it came at a price. I was really anxious and worried, and arranging him meeting my parents was an issue as well, because I was outside enjoying St. James's Park, right in the center of London, and yeah, somehow I had to work out the solution to the problem.
Okay. By the way, how many times have you visited London? Approximately.
Like 15 maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. The funny thing is how he lost those keys. He was skydiving, and the keys just fell out of his pocket, or I don't know where he had put them into.
Okay. I think that's
And so it was somewhere on that field, and of course there was no chance of him finding those keys, even though he claimed that he had attempted to look for them.
yeah, it's like looking for a needle in a haystack.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. I think that's a story for IELTS speaking part 2. It's a good plot.
Oh, just like lucky thing that my parents had another set.
Yeah.
If I hadn't left another set with them, I don't know what actually could be done, because the owner of the apartment is somewhere far away, uh, and the police would not come and just like open the door just for the cat. So my cat would have to stay inside, locked inside for, I don't know, I don't really remember how many days, but I think it was like, judging by the fact that I was in St. James's Park, and that's the first point I go to whenever I'm in London. So that was probably on my first day in London. And that means that there were 2 more weeks to go.
Right. Yeah, but maybe in Russia you can negotiate with a private locksmith to have this apartment opened, something like this.
Yeah, you probably can, but still they're also quite careful. I don't know, like, who are you? Can you show me
Absolutely.
your like credentials? Is this your flat? I don't know.
Okay, yeah. And as for me, I believe I've never lost my keys, but I understand how frustrating and stressful it can be. So not only can it not only can it make it difficult to access important locations or belongings, or a cat, or like in this case, but it can also create a sense of vulnerability and insecurity. That's probably how you felt. And were I to lose my keys, I would probably take immediate steps to try to recover them, like retrace my steps, or maybe ask for an extra pair of keys if somebody stores these keys. Actually, yesterday I had I had a similar situation. I was returning home from a supermarket, and here in the Philippines, we we hire motorbike taxis. I mean, there are taxis, but ordinary taxis, but they're more expensive. And so I was going on a motorbike taxi, and I was holding not to fall off the motorbike with one hand, and with the other hand, I was holding my shopping. So, and I felt that the keys were in the pocket of my shorts, and I thought that, okay, these keys might fall out any moment, but there was nothing I could do. Like, I didn't want to stop the driver, the rider, and then I thought, okay, so if I lose my keys, then I'll have to like walk back and retrace my steps all the way back to the shop and just try to find the keys. The problem is that the landlady is also in another city, so I don't have any other access to this home, and no one would probably open it for me. So that would be a problem, but everything was fine in the end. So my keys were still in my pocket. Okay, so do you think it's a good idea to leave your keys with a neighbor?
It totally depends upon your relationship with that said neighbor. If the relationship is based on mutual trust, then probably it's not a bad idea, especially if you don't have anyone else to ask for the favor. However, if you do not really trust your neighbor and you do not really know them well, since these days we do not really get in touch with people who live next door, literally. I don't know what their names are. I don't have any relationship, but just saying hello and nodding when we pass each other in this communal area of our blocks of flats, and that's it. So no, I would not leave my keys with them. And that also hinges upon how paranoid you are. Even if your neighbors are completely trustworthy, but you have some issues, anxieties, and fears, you probably won't be leaving your keys with them, will you?
Definitely. So yeah, I agree that leaving your keys with a neighbor can be a hassle, but if it's a trusted neighbor, it can be a practical and convenient solution. And yes, it ultimately depends on several factors, such including the trustworthiness of the individual in question, and also the specific circumstances of your situation. So here in my place, I would easily leave keys with my neighbors, because firstly, I don't have any valuables in my apartment, and secondly, there are CCTV cameras in the corridor, so it's easy to know if somebody, like if this neighbor uses the key to enter the apartment, it's very easy to find
Mm-hmm.
it out if something is lost. So I believe I live in a very secure place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So have you ever locked yourself out?
Well, me personally, never. But again, bad things happen to me when I'm away on holiday, and that particular memorable occasion happened a few years back when my family and I went on holiday to Estonia. So we rented an apartment, and it was three-bedroom apartment, if I'm not mistaken. And the thing is that all of the bedroom doors had the key on the inside. And my 4-year-old son back then locked himself inside. The problem is that he's autistic, he's on the spectrum, and it's not easy to explain things to him. We try talking him to turn the key, like backwards, counterclockwise, and he seemed to try that, but then the key fell out, and he just was hysterical, and he was crying really, really hard. So we had to call the owner of the apartment, but the problem was that she herself lived in Spain while renting this apartment over distance. So it created a lot of hassle. Finally, I managed to find something long and thin. I don't really remember what it was. Maybe it was something like a needle, a knitting needle. So I was able to stick the needle under the door and to use it as a hook to get the key out. Fortunately, there was quite a wide space under the door, so I was able to do that. So we opened the door from the outside, got him out. I then just took all the keys out of the doors, placed them really, really high. And Timosha was not able to play with those keys and locks anymore. But at the same time, I felt comparatively comfortable with leaving him on his own inside those bedrooms.
Okay. Yeah, we thought we would have nothing to say on the topic of keys, but you see there's a lot that can be said. Personally, I have never locked myself out, but if it ever happened to me, I would likely feel frustrated and anxious. So I would also, but in spite of this, I would also recognize that this situation is not necessarily insurmountable. For example, I could contact someone who has a spare key, or I would be able to contact a locksmith, or something else could be done. I mean, it's not the end of the world, definitely.
Yeah, it's not the end of the world, but when it's about a 4-year-old screaming their heads off,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
And he also managed to lock him. Well, not he, my husband managed to lock our side inside a car with the keys inside. And there was also no way to talk him into unbuckling himself, getting those keys and passing those keys to us, because there was quite a wide crack in the window. So we could have gotten those keys through the window if our son helped us from the inside. But he was not particularly following, so he didn't understand what we were trying to tell him. So we had to call a special guy who opened the door in a matter of minutes and charged, I don't know, a little fortune for that. Fortunately for us, the day was not that hot, so our son was not hot inside the car, because I've heard that there are many situations when children are left inside the car unattended on a hot day, on a sunny day, and then they just bad things happen.
Right. Yeah, I also remembered once I couldn't close my car. So it was really a really cold, freezing day, and there probably some ice got inside the lock. And so, but it was a very cheap car. I was just I had just passed my driving test, and I bought a cheap car just to learn how to drive. And so I wasn't really worried that someone was going to get inside or something. So I left it open for a couple of hours, and that was fine. It was it was a real clunker, a lemon, as they say. So but I had a hard time. I was trying to find someone on the internet who could close my car, because there were many services that can open a car. And when I called them, so, well, can you close my car? They said, no, we cannot. We can only open your car. So,
that is hilarious.
But after about 1 or 2 hours, I just found someone, and they told me which liquid to buy. So if this happens again, then I just put a special liquid inside, and it should help.